Hey, what's your
Every time I go somewhere new, I will interview the supervisor more than they interview me. Okay, but আমার সেই নলেজটা ছিল না. I always felt underconfident that আমার entomology-তেই master's degree আছে, so I have to apply for a PhD in entomology, where we worked on xenophus of frog models of endocrinology. It was a completely different work area. I was scared. I was terrified. Then I got a position in Harvard Medical School, where I was working in neurofibromatosis gene therapy. So that was very relevant to both pharmaceutical companies.
Hey, what's your secret? You got the kind of vibe that leaves me speechless. It could be model multitasking.
We welcome Dr. Bidisha Pal today in this special episode of Talking Scientific. Bidisha Di is also my senior. She is working on oncology research in University Medical Center of Hamburg-Eppendorf in Germany. So we will hear from her that what she is working on, what her research is on. Bidisha Di, please share it.
Thank you very much for the invite. I'm really delighted to be talking about my work and my journey so far, and I hope you find it informative, helpful, and useful. So currently, I'm working on oncology, and আমার main কাজ হচ্ছে so when somebody gets, I will explain it in simpler terms. When somebody is diagnosed with cancer, okay, or somebody has the doctor has doubts that the symptoms could be that the patient or the person has tumor. The first test is a biopsy, which involves taking a small amount of the tumor tissue from that particular doubtful area and then testing it. And the whole process is very painful, because first the person has to be admitted in the hospital and they have to go through a small surgical procedure. It's small, but even any kind of surgery is terrifying, at least to me. And then the decision comes whether or not there is a tumor. And this test can be only done when the tumor is big enough that some part of the tissue can be taken from it, okay? The sizes are, the minimum size is different for different types of cancer. But if the tumor is very small, let's say pea-sized or even smaller, then biopsy cannot be done, or it cannot be detected, or the symptoms are also small. And this is normally done only once at the time of diagnosis, okay? And then later the treatment starts, okay? There is either surgery, either chemotherapy. During this time, the tumor goes down, increases, goes down, increases, goes down, increases, and then only the size of the tumor is decided based on imaging. Only the machine that takes the picture can decide whether the tumor has grown or smaller if the tumor is of a minimum size, okay? So what is wrong with this entire diagnostic and treatment procedure or monitoring procedure is, if the tumor is very small, it cannot be detected. But it's still there, it's still growing, and you have to basically wait for it to grow, which is very sad. You have to wait for it to grow enough that you start the treatment. But if you can detect the tumor, even when it is the size of a mustard seed, you can start the treatment right away, right? You don't have to wait. So this is basically what we do here. We try to detect the tumor even before it has taken shape of a tumor, okay? Even before it can be detected by any kind of surgical or imaging procedure, we try to detect it from blood samples. So every time you go to the hospital for anything, like testing taking blood for thyroid or diabetes or cholesterol or even hemoglobin, or even testing your blood type, we try to tell the patient that if that person has tumor or cancer from simply blood tests. And also even during chemotherapy, if the tumor is growing or decreasing way earlier, and I'm talking about months, years earlier than the tumor has taken shape in the imaging. So basically what we're trying to do is doing a minimally invasive procedure for detecting cancer or diagnosing cancer, and also telling the patients whether the cancer is going down or up way before the imaging or other invasive procedures can come on. So basically improving the quality of life of patients, improving treatment procedures, which is also very painful, and there are a lot of side effects.
I have two questions now. So, on this context, you are working on the liquid biopsy assay, right? So, I want you to tell us, like, explain us, considering me as a very novice person who doesn't know anything about what you're working on, just explain briefly what is a liquid biopsy and how it is addressing all the issues that you have just discussed.
Liquid biopsy means it is based on blood. Okay, it is also based on saliva, based on urine, so these are even less invasive. And basically, the idea is that we take blood from the patient who has suspected cancer, then we analyze the blood, and then normally a tumor always sheds DNA. Okay, sheds DNA in the blood, sheds cells in the blood, and we analyze the blood and tell them, like, okay, you have tumor DNA, so you have tumor, or you have tumor cells, so you have cancer, or something like that. And then the patient goes to the doctor, verifies it, or maybe starts the treatment already, again, even before the tumor is even when the tumor is very small, so that you treat it at a very early age. The chances of that growing bigger and causing bigger problems is much lower.
So, you have worked in your career in India, in United States, and now you're working in Germany. So, which country was your favorite? Which challenged you the most, and which was your comfort?
Each of these has its own perks and own advantages and disadvantages. And I have also grown through my life while transitioning from these countries, from one country to another. So in India, when I started working, of course, I knew nothing. I knew nothing how everything works. I knew nothing. I was young, probably a little bit stupid, and I didn't know, how to approach people, how to talk about science, how science is done. I had no idea. Then, and it was a process going to UK and then to US and now in Germany. And I think I'm at a much better place to make decisions which are good for myself. And it also depends on what you want. For example, I can say that yes, in India, I was closer to my family. Visiting my family was, just one train ride to home. So definitely, if somebody wants to stay close to their family, then they have to think about if going outside is not really an option. Is really an option. Second is in the US, it's a very good opportunity to learn. So if you want to go to the US as a student, okay, whether as a PhD student or as a master's or undergrad student, it's a very good opportunity to learn because everybody is hustling there. And even if you don't want to hustle, you kind of get into it because there is a lot of competition and you feel like you are missing out. So whether or not you actively want to do things, you kind of get into it as a I don't know, byproduct, and the outcome at the end is really good. Because when I started my PhD, I didn't really know what I wanted. I wanted to do a postdoc at that time, and I didn't know what a postdoc is supposed to do after that. I only knew the next step. But I really had a good supervisor, amazing supervisor, with whom I graduated with my PhD, and that made a big difference because he showed me that okay, you can do this. Because I only had like a very small mindset that okay, this is my project, this is what I will do, and then I will have my thesis. But he showed me no, you can go to competitions, you can write grant proposals, you can have side projects, you can have review papers, and then a bunch of other things. Okay, so it depends on who you're working with and what kind of environment you have. But I would not necessarily say that it would have been a great place to stay with my family, because my husband had a completely different work area or scientific area. He is an engineer, civil engineer, and then for him finding a job in the US without having a US degree was almost impossible. So again, if I had to think in that context, I would say it's difficult if you want to start a family from scratch. But of course, if you find someone there in the US in the same field, in the same city, and it's a completely different question. And also the work-life balance there is very conflicting. Some people have good work-life balance depending on where they work. In science, in research, is pretty chaotic. Then you have visa restrictions and immigration problems. So all the time you have to travel back to India to get a visa. And then the government actually regulates who is elected president and stuff, all that. He see that in the news all the time. They get to call the shots on immigration rules as well. So you kind of stay in a lot of stress all the time, I would say, in terms of, your mental peace is kind of a wreck. But if you just think about going, I will go there, I will learn, I will come back, it's excellent. It's excellent. Okay, you have a lot of resources, they have a lot of funds, a lot of resources, and almost everybody is willing to help because they know they are also getting something out of it. Okay, in Germany it's a different situation. Everything is a little bit slow paced, because people have, not everybody is hustling there, and everybody has their life, their work is just restricted to work time, and then after work they have a completely different life, and nobody is ever allowed to question that. So for example, if I'm sick, I'm sick, I don't need to explain what sickness I have, I don't need to even tell my boss. If I go to the doctor and the doctor tells me I can take a 5-day rest, a sick note automatically goes to my health insurance provider, and that goes to my university or my employer. My immediate supervisor doesn't even have to know about it. I'm not liable to tell anyone. So it's very separated in that context. Okay, so people don't even think about going to the lab on Saturdays or Sundays. It's kind of impossible to think about. So I would say work-life balance here is great, and it is much easier. Immigration problems are also much easier to deal with. But again, at the same time, funding is restricted here. There is a lot more competition, and you will have to put a lot more effort because bureaucracy is also pretty strong here. There are a lot of rules and regulations, paperwork. If you want to do, for example, something, for example, animal experiments, or get permission for a cell line transfer, and all these biological regulations, they're also very strict, which I did not experience in the US. So it was pretty fast. But here also I get to live with my family. I have much more mental peace, security in my life. So it eventually depends on, what your immediate and long-term goals are.
Tell me something about the German language. Is it a problem there?
So it depends on where you are living. In bigger cities like Hamburg, Berlin, Munich, Frankfurt, almost everybody speaks English. Okay. But I would always recommend learning the language of the place you are living in. I mean, imagine somebody trying to work for West Bengal government without speaking Bengali, it's something like that. মানে আমি কোনোদিন ইমাজিনই করতে পারবো না যে কেউ বাংলা বলতে পারে না, সে কালেক্টর হয়েছে ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে, বা পুলিশের চাকরি করছে, রাইট? অর ইভেন স্কুল টিচার, হয়তো ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গল গভর্নমেন্টের স্কুলে ইংলিশ পড়াচ্ছে, স্টিল স্টাফ রুমে তাকে বাংলাতেই কথা বলতে হবে, রাইট? ইনফর্মালি স্টুডেন্টদের সাথে তাকে বাংলাতেই কথা বলতে হবে. সো থিঙ্ক অফ দিস, ইজ ইট পসিবল? ইটস নট. If you're living in Bangalore, yes, if you're working in a research institute, nobody needs to speak the local language, okay? But that's restricted to science, that's restricted to work. But outside that, তোমাকে কেউ বাড়িতে পার্টিতে ইনভাইট করলো, they're not gonna speak in English, right? So they will speak in Hindi or Kannada or whatever the local language is. So same thing is here. If you want to make friends, and you can say, okay, I don't want to make friends, I can live on my own, it's fine. But if you want to move on, right? If you are, let's say you're buying a car, you go to the car dealership to talk about it, it will be in German. You are buying a home, or you are buying something, okay? Or you are, I don't know, going to a party where everybody is German, and they will speak English for some time, but then when they talk between themselves, they're not going to speak in English. And you can be okay with it, you can be not. I was not okay with it, so I learned the language. And right now, based on the economic condition, it's very much recommended to learn the language after you come in here, because even jobs that required no German before, 2 years back, now they're asking for B1, B2, okay, which is pretty, I would say, high level, or like conversational level. And also interviews are mostly in German, and you don't have to speak perfect German, no way, but at least you should be able to understand what the other person is saying, and they should be also able to understand you.
So you started from BCKV, you graduated in agriculture, then you also touched entomology, and now you're working in cancer research. So how was the journey? How the diversion happened? What point you decided that you want to divert to this area of research?
That's a good question, but the probably the answer that you're not expecting is that I didn't decide. It was just a coincidence.
Okay.
So I didn't make any of these decisions that I wanted to work in cancer biology or I wanted to work in my PhD was completely different. So yeah, it's a bit of a personal experience also. So when I got my PhD offer from University of Cincinnati, it was PhD in so also I mean I didn't know that it doesn't matter where you have worked on before. Your soft skills matter much more than your hand skills. Okay, so my soft skills were, I would say, could let me go into any field I wanted to do a PhD on. Okay, I had basic molecular biology experience and that was enough. But আমার সেই নলেজটা ছিল না. I always felt under confident that আমার entomology-তেই master's degree আছে, so I have to apply for a PhD in entomology. And I only applied to agricultural universities in the US and Europe and who were working on either entomology directly, agricultural entomology, or যারা insect model নিয়ে কাজ করছিল. But it was completely irrelevant. It didn't matter, okay? That I know now. I didn't know it 6 years back. And then I started my PhD in a lab where they were working on insect models and Drosophila, but it didn't work out. Well, put honestly, I was kicked out of that lab because the supervisor found me unfit for a PhD program in their lab. But I did not want to come back to India, and I decided to keep going, and I found another lab in the same department, and that was my, I would say, jackpot. Okay, so the field was developmental endocrinology, where we worked on xenopus or frog models of endocrinology. It was a completely different work area. I was scared, I was terrified. I thought I would fail because in 2 years we had this exam where we have to write a proposal, a grant proposal, and then we have to pass, and I was 100% sure that I will fail because I knew nothing. The last time I studied endocrinology was in class 10. After that I knew nothing, but I passed. And then somehow, I don't know how, I had an amazing supervisor. I graduated from my program earlier than all of the students I got in the PhD program, despite having changed labs. Okay, having 9 months less time than they had. I graduated even way earlier than them, and I also graduated with 5 first author publications. I'm not bragging this, but I'm just saying that this was completely not planned, or I did not expect this. But I said in the beginning that my supervisor, like, broadened my vision, and he was like, I would say, more like my father there. And then after I graduated, initially the idea was that I would stay in US for a few years and then maybe work in a company or do a postdoc. But then I also wanted to move to Germany to be with my husband. I did not want to continue, so because I wanted to go into pharma, but I was not getting any jobs at that time, because also, it's very difficult with student visa to get a job because of immigration reasons. Not many companies are willing to sponsor immigrants or student visas. So I thought of doing a postdoc and then making a switch to the company. But I wanted to do a postdoc in a field that was relevant for pharma companies, such as gene therapy and then CAR T-cell therapy or something like that, and cancer biology. And I applied to a lot of labs in the US and in Germany who are working on these fields. And then I got a position in Harvard Medical School, where I was working in neurofibromatosis gene therapy. So that was very relevant to both pharmaceutical companies. But in the meantime, I was also interviewing places in Germany, and then one of my labs the lab that I'm currently working now, who are working with liquid biopsy, I interviewed at that time. That is also very relevant to pharma companies and pharmaceuticals. And then I got an offer, and then I left Harvard, and then I moved here. So that's how I switched to, oncology. But it was not specifically that I wanted to go into oncology, because I just wanted to go into a field that was closer or more relevant to pharmaceutical companies. But but oncology is great. And I'm pretty happy in my lab right now. My supervisor is also very great.
So I remember this frog lab because years back, I was asking you, we have been in constant touch actually. So I asked you how to, I was writing the proposals for abroad universities back then. So I asked you how to write that. You sent me so many documents about that. And then I am working in a prog lab. I'm not in agriculture anymore. I remember that. So you mentioned that you also have worked in Harvard Medical School briefly. So how was the experience? And already from what you have said, we know that for family matters, you have you had to leave that role. So how difficult it was, because it is like a dream, like working in Harvard.
Again, the answer might surprise you. It was not difficult at all. It took me 5 minutes to decide because we have been living in long distance relationship since 2024. So almost, 9 years. Since I was in BCKV, I was an undergrad student. That's when we met, and and it's been long distance since then. And in 2023, it was almost 9 years, and we told ourselves that we have this 10-year deadline. Within that time, we have to somehow find a reason to start living together, because otherwise it makes no sense, right? We were married, we were already 4 years married, and we are still living separate. So that's why when I got the job, it made me no difference is Harvard or not. I don't care. Okay, if Harvard was in Germany, good. It's not, I don't care. I have a job in the same city where he can also move while staying in the same company, because his job was his permanent, and mine is a postdoc, is contract based, right? So I didn't want to risk it also that he leaves his job and blah blah blah. So that's it. 5 minutes, and I said yes after I got the email that yeah, you were accepted. I was like, yes, let's move forward. So yeah, I know I get this question a lot of times. How difficult was it? Did you think about a lot and stuff? But I was interviewing for this position even when I was already in Harvard. Okay, so I already made up my mind that if I get this, I will go. So after that, getting the offer was no brainer.
So this is, I think it's a very tricky point for every girl, every woman out there who are doing something for themselves also, and also trying to balance the family. But I think it's a good call. There's no life where science and love cannot work parallelly. So congratulations that you find your proper choice in life. But also that brings me to my next question, that as a woman researcher, what has been your experience? What challenges you have faced?
Yeah, I think all of those hard for women situation, I would say, or hard for women to do things ended in India. I would, if I'm being very honest, yes, navigating my life, my research work, navigating myself as a woman, finding my freedom in BCKV was very hard. And even when I got my offer in the UK for an internship, which was supposed to set me back for a year. So I had to delay my master's thesis for a year. But it was an amazing opportunity. It was fully funded. Okay, everything from my flight tickets to my IELTS exam, everything was fully funded. The lab was amazing. The PI was pretty famous. I was still criticized by a lot of people that this is a very wrong decision. I should not go. It will set my career back. Maybe, but I don't know that right now. Let me try this out and then I will figure out. Okay, there was no real life example who would tell me, like, look, I went there and this happened. Okay, there was nobody like that, but still I was told that this is a bad decision. But based on what? Based on what are you telling me? So I don't think and it's my personal opinion, I don't think people would be giving me these free advices if I was not a woman. Okay, so it is always perceived that it's difficult for a woman to go along at night, go and drive alone. They should always be accompanied by a man to make big decisions. And every time somebody comes to the house, okay, where is the man of the house? I don't think these questions, these free advices would have been given out if I was a guy. Okay, didn't matter. So yes, all of those mostly ended when I was in India. And I think actually it made me much stronger, because even my first PhD position in the US, it was along those lines difficult because I was a woman. And I learned a lot from those. So I learned a lot from my experiences in India, in BCKV, as also my first PhD position, because after that, I was headed so hard that every time I go somewhere new, I will interview the supervisor more than they interview me. Okay. And I'm not wrong in that. Okay. Yes, they are paying me, but they're also getting my expertise. They're hiring me for a reason. They're hiring me because they find me valuable. They find me capable and responsible. So they are getting much more from me than I am getting them. Yes, they're paying me, but also you are getting a lot of other things. So I should have to state my value and, ask them uncomfortable questions, not just about science, but like, okay, what projects do you have, but also uncomfortable questions like, okay, if I fail, my experiments fail, how do you react? And also ask the questions to the other lab members, like, how does your PI handle if you go to them saying your experiment failed, you didn't get the data that they expected, or let's say you had a deadline you could not fulfill because you were sick, or you have to take suddenly a vacation because something happened in your family. I believe empathy should be the highest priority. Okay, science happens, everything can wait, everything, but life cannot wait. Your family, your sickness or anything, none of those don't come announced. They're always unannounced. And if you don't work with somebody who doesn't understand those, it's not worth. So I think all those experience of me as a woman that I faced in India, maybe in other places, they only made me strong. And I don't say I would regret having those. Yes.
What's your secret? You got the kind of vibe that leaves me speechless. It could be model multitasking genius. Yeah, you got it all. Hey, what's your story? A kick-ass mom and 40 under 4.